My name is James B. Tenney. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. I'm wearing my uniform for the first time in 44 years. I was trained as an aviation machinist mate, an airplane mechanic, and also as a search and rescue frogman. Today the frogman term has been changed to a rescue surface swimmer.
That's not as cool.
I was a crewman on a H-3 Sikorsky helicopter, which is an older version of the helicopter the Air Force uses to fly the president around. I was involved in 4 missions, which involved 13 rescues and 1 recovery. I will not elaborate, except to say that the day of the 1 recovery was not a good day for me and my crew. As a veteran, I'm allowed to wear my uniform on 3 federal holidays: Veterans Day to honor fellow veterans, Memorial Day to honor fallen comrades, and Independence Day to honor this nation and the men and women of the armed forces. First off, I'd like to thank my fellow veteran over here, Stephanie. She continues to work at the VA to help veterans coming in there at the VA here in Austin Clinic. And because today I want to speak to you something that's very dear to my heart. It was 5 words that changed my life back in high school about 50 years ago. The words are, all men are created equal. These words are the beginning of the 2nd paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Frederick Douglass is a hero of mine. He was born a slave in early 1818. 20 years later, he escaped slavery and declared himself a free man. He had learned to read and write as a child in the darkness because it was illegal for a slave to teach or learn or read and write. Still, he read everything he could get his hands on. Douglass became an American social reformer, abolitionist, orator, writer, and statesman. In a fiery 4th of July speech in 1852, he condemned the phrase, first written 76 years earlier, because he didn't believe it fully included every man. Quote, "What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are these great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in the Declaration of Independence extended to us?" When Douglass was 29 years old, he started publishing his first abolitionist newspaper, the North Star. The motto he chose for the paper was, "Right is of no sex, truth is of no color. God is the Father of us all, and we are all brethren." 1 year later, Douglass was the only African American and one of only a few men to attend the Seneca Falls Convention, the first women's rights convention in upstate New York. Elizabeth Cady Station, the leading figure in the early women's rights movement, asked the Assembly to pass a resolution asking for women's suffrage, the right to vote. Many present opposed the idea, including church leaders of the time. Douglass stood and spoke eloquently in favor, and he could not accept the right to vote as a black man if women could not also claim the right. He suggested the world would be a better place if women were involved in the political sphere. In this denial of the right to participate in government, not merely the degradation of women and the perpetuation of a great injustice happens, but the maiming and repudiation of 1/2 of the moral and intellectual power of the government of the world. After Douglass's powerful words, the attendees passed the resolution. Martin Luther King Jr. and John F. Kennedy are 2 more of my heroes. I heard these 2 speeches when they happened. King, in his I Have a Dream speech in 1963, stated, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out its true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." He was assassinated for speaking the truth and defending our rights. And Kennedy used the phrase to demand equality in a speech entitled, "For What We Fight" in 1964. This country was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. He and his brother were assassinated for speaking the truth and defending our rights. Today, some 55 years later, we have a president who does not believe that all men are created equal. He has repeated time and again that he is the best America has to offer, that he is the greatest president of all time, and only he can make America great again. His actions throughout his career as landlord and businessman and now as leader of the free world bear witness to his prejudice and villainy. It's been chant to judge people by the worst of them is front and center and recorded for posterity and the world to witness. Mexicans, Muslims, protesters, Democrats, women, poor people, black people, brown people, transgender people. The list is never ending, and anyone who dare tells the truth about him or disagrees with him, he will direct his most vehement retribution. As far as I can see, he has no allegiance to the people or our nation, and the principles of liberty and justice for all are as foreign to him as empathy and compassion. Going from 8 years in a Catholic grade school to a public high school, I was bullied nearly every day of my freshman year. I will admit for a time I too became a bully, mostly to my younger brothers. I know what a bully is and can recognize one easily. I know too what being bullied does to your heart and soul. Now let me tell you how these 5 words changed my life. I took a bully swipe at Malvern Books, a fellow classmate who never bothered anyone. I said something about him being stupid because he stuttered. And old Malvern puffed out his chest, raised his forefinger, staring me eyeball to eyeball, stuttered every 3 or 4 words and said, "President Abraham Lincoln said, all men are created equal, and I don't care what you think." He turned around and got off the school bus. I remember those words like they happened yesterday. I knew he was right and I was wrong. After that, I did not like what I saw in the mirror. I think I felt worse than I did when the bullies were laughing at me. I did apologize to Malvern soon after, but he moved during the summer. And with the start of a new school year in a different school, I was never bullied again, nor did I bully anyone else. When Trump became president, I truly felt this was the man our country needed most at this time. Not because he would be a noble president, but because I knew he would not. It was my hope that he would lay bare the corrupt politicians and the lies they spout of loyalty to the Constitution and their constituents. He has done just that and continues even now. Most of these lifelong politicians on both sides of the aisle have long since sold out their loyalty to this country for legal corporate bribes that sway their every decision. Our country is nothing more than a monopoly game to this man. He has learned from years of experience the only way he can win is to lie and cheat and steal. One day he will deny it, the next he will probably be the first to brag it is so. He loves nothing more than to pit people against one another while he collects the spoils. Brother against brother, men against women, right against left, black against white, refugees against Americans, Christians against LGBT people. It doesn't matter to him as long as the road continues. He is so laughably inept to lead our country that it boggles the mind of all who are not under his spell. Leaders around the world laughed in his face at the United Nations as soon as he began spouting his pompous claptrap. Make America great again. Donald Trump cannot make this country great again because it has been great since our forefathers signed the Declaration of Independence and established the Constitution. I know this nation has made many mistakes throughout its history, but nearly every mistake was caused by men who refused to believe or were conned into forgetting that all men are created equal. America is great because we the people make it great. It will be a new generation of politicians who are motivated by the service to the people that will make this country even greater. We saw a giant step toward that this past election. I think the more women we have running this country, the better off we will be. This is the last hurrah of the 50s guys leading this country, and Trump is the epitome of most of our elected officials. Most are just as greedy and crooked as Trump is. It's just they have learned political protocols and how to create a statesman-like persona that appeals to the masses. Trump's legacy will not be that of a man of the people. He will be remembered as a maniacal, self-centered, petty con man who tried to denigrate everything that makes this country great just for fun. He ran for president for the same reason he has done everything in his life, to enrich himself and his family and to crush anyone who would dare challenge his iron facade. But I also think he'll be remembered as the only man who could have created a renaissance in civic participation. And I believe the next election we will see a wave of people elected refusing to take corporate and PAC money and truly do what is right for the people. We are all human beings. We all come from immigrant families except for the few Native Americans that now remain. Your neighbor is not your enemy. The enemy is fear and bigotry and hatred, and those who tell you your neighbor is the cause of all your want and need. Indeed, there is poverty and lack in this country, but it is not because of immigrants or refugees or poor people on food stamps or welfare. It is because our leaders have abdicated their responsibility to we the people. Our politicians have deregulated and allowed the wealthiest corporations to write tax laws and banking laws and criminal laws to their advantage. They buy up the entire media industry and turn it into a personal propaganda machine with the most devious intention. The opposing networks all spouting opposite narratives in support of the same goal of dividing our country by either keeping silent about the truth or mucking it up with plausible nonsense when it is reported. We are Americans because our ancestors heard of the shining light on the other side of the world, who abandoned their native lands and laid it all on the line for the opportunity to live their dreams and fought for your right to live your dreams. Many lives cut short of doing so. Many were not welcomed at first, but America is big enough for anyone who wants to become an American. Yes, most of us are Americans because it is our birthright, but we must remember as well that we are Americans because our forefathers would not submit to tyranny or injustice. We are free men because men before us stood up and said, "I will not be a slave to any man or any government." We are Americans because we believe in the rule of law and no man is above the law. We are Americans because we are generous to those in need and welcome new citizens whose highest aspirations align with our own. We are Americans, and we make this country great when we stand together as one nation and demand justice for all. My hope would be for those who blindly follow this man is to open your eyes and heart and ask yourself the same question Frederick Douglass asked himself nearly 200 years ago. Am I a slave or am I a man? I choose to be a man, equal to all men, because it is self-evident. And as men, we are all endowed by our Creator with the same unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And tonight I'm grateful for Marvin for setting me straight some 50 years ago. I'm thankful to y'all for listening.